few months ago I covered a certain series, and today we're going to have another look at it because this series has surprised me. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have another look at playing deaf games to put food on the table. Now this is a series that I covered a few months ago when I initially got a review copy from Yen Press, and I'm going to take another look at it now that volume 3 has released, simply because this is a series that honestly has surprised me at how good it is. Playing Deaf Games has been written by Yushi Yukai with illustrations by Neko Metaru and published by Yen Press. And for full transparency, Yen Press sent me a review copy of volume 1 and later volume 2. However, I picked up volume 3 and any further copies on my own back. So what is Playing Deaf Games to Put Food on the Table about? Well, this is about a young girl named Yuki who, well, she does deaf games as a living. Now what does that mean? Well, you guys know what a deaf game is, at least I'm assuming you are. But if you don't know, a deaf game is basically a competition in which, well, the protagonists can die at any point. So if you've seen Squid Games, Kaiji, even Yu-Gi-Oh!, you are probably going to have an idea of what's going to happen. If you fail in the deaf game, you die in real life. Now this has a little bit of a twist. So this is basically about a young girl who does it as her occupation. She's got to do it for whatever reason, and well, she's gonna have a goal, and her goal is to survive 100 deaf games. She finds that the struggle is real. Now what I like about this series is that as it starts off, she is very good. She's a very good player, and she's a little bit more experienced than some of the other girls. However, as the series goes along, it becomes very apparent that she is just one drop in the ocean, as well, of course, other experienced players are going to start entering the games. So what type of games do we have here? Well, each of them has a theme, and as I mentioned in my previous review, each theme seems to be about a certain way of being able to merchandise the characters. And if I'm honest, that's a bit of a genius move. For example, volume 1 we have a girl in schoolgirl costumes, then we get maid costumes, then we get weird mushroom ones, then we get swimsuits and theme park costumes. It is very methodical in how they're going about it. You can certainly look at it and go, yes, they can release a different figure of each character in different outfits to simulate the different deaf games. And honestly, I can't complain about that. They know what they're doing, and you know what? They're upfront about it. But one of the things that shines about this series is that the characters can reappear. So this is a bunch of deaf games. They're not necessarily in order, but they're chronically going through Yuki's 1 to 100 games, and it's pretty much stated that there is basically a wall around your 30th game. That is when most players end up failing. So what we have here is a nice catalogue of different girls who will pop up in different games, because let's face it, a protagonist in a deaf game, they're going to have a little bit of plot armour. That's not to say it feels completely safe, but let's face it, it's going to be a short series if your main protagonist dies in volume 1. However, spoiler alert, death doesn't seem to necessarily be the end all for end alls, as we see very early on that, much like in Dragon Ball, death sometimes can just be a little bit of a slight inconvenience, and that's where this series becomes absolutely bonkers, because as the series goes along, more and more girls disappear, but we get some girls who seem to be getting, I wouldn't say powers, but they have like abilities, or they're specifically good at this certain thing that makes them kind of a little bit more interesting. For example, one, they're a coward, and that just so happens to be a great thing to be. There's others where they'll pop up in one volume and then they'll kind of have a rival with Yuki and turn up in a subsequent volume trying to kill her, and it kind of works. Like I said, Yuki at the start, she starts off being very knowledgeable and kind of just like, oh yeah, you know, this is the life of a death game. But then it kind of was just like, by volume 3, she's kind of been outpaced by other people. There's like people who are just like, oh, I saw you in like game 20. What are you on now? I'm on number 30. And they're like, I'm on number 50. And you're like, what? You overtook me? And it's kind of ridiculous in the power scale and in terms of she is technically an overpowered character at the beginning. But as the series is progressing, she is very becoming matched. She's just a drop in the ocean, and it's working. Now, what has been done in order to make this more pleasing, I would say, to the anime manga industry is that, well, like I said, death isn't necessarily the end, but anything that has blood gets turned into basically fluff. So the girls are basically stuffed animals, I suppose. So a limb gets missing, you're not going to see spurts of blood or decapitation. Instead, you're going to see decapitation with added fluff. And you know what? That's going to make it so much easier to get past a lot of the censors and make this more of a palatable series for certain people. Playing death games to put food on the table is an interesting ride so far, and honestly, it's one that I have really enjoyed. It's one that I kind of feel like could come out of anywhere, and if I'm honest, we don't see that many death game series in light novel form. I'm not going to say this is the absolute best light novel of all time, but if I'm perfectly honest, what started off as a, oh, you know, maybe just skirting into top 50 has very quickly became a top 20 series for me, and one that I am very excited to pick up more of. Like I said, it doesn't go too over the top in terms of the harm, and it's kind of getting a bit insane with how some of these scenarios are progressing and how some of these other girls who are popping up and kind of appearing are kind of getting not abilities, but they're kind of getting skills that make them unique. It is making an interesting read, and while the main character has a little bit of plot armor, all of these other girls who, if I'm honest, we're starting to get a little bit attached to since some of them are reappearing, well, of course, they don't have that main protagonist plot armor. So it kind of is making it more interesting on whether or not these interesting characters, because I'm honest, they are interesting enough to make you root for them, will they survive? Or will they just cheat death? Or die? Who knows? But take it from me, playing death games to put food on the table is a little bit more of an interesting title, and one that I can really get behind. Do check it out if you get the chance. It's 100% worth your time.